of the public to this meeting of the North Yorkshire Council Skipton and Ripon Area Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Nathan Hull, Chair of the committee, and the Vice Chair is Councillor Andy Brown, who's sat to my right. Could I remind everyone that today's meeting is being audio recorded and will be made publicly available in the next few days on the Council's website. Recording of Council meetings is permitted. I've not been notified that anyone has contacted Democratic Services to say that they wish to record the meeting today, but if there's anybody amongst us who is intending to record the meeting, could they please let us know now? Okay, can't see any hands. Okay, so moving on, in terms of housekeeping, could I please ask you to ensure that mobile phones are switched off or kept on silent? I've not been told that we're going to have a fire alarm test today, so if the fire alarm does go off, if you could make your way out of the nearest exit, and then if you could congregate in the main square to the front of these offices. The officer in attendance today to support this meeting is Stuart Mills, who's the Development Management Team Manager, Mike Parks, Senior Planning Officer, Glenn Sharp, who's Solicitor, and Nikki Davies from Democratic Services. So moving on to item 1, apologies for absence. I think we've got a full house now.
Yes, no apologies.
No apologies today. Okay. So agenda item 2 is minutes for the meeting held on Tuesday, the 1st of April 2025. These can be found on pages 3 to 6 of today's agenda. Does anyone have any comments or observations on the minutes?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. At the last meeting I asked an update on the sawmill at Gargrave, and it was promised that at the Chair's briefing and Vice Chair's briefing that there would be an update on it.
Okay.
So at the bottom of the minutes on page 6.
Right, okay. So is that something that we normally deal with under any other items? Yeah, so are you asking for an update now?
Well, according to the minutes...
It's not in the minutes, is that
according to the minutes,
no,
it was...
It is in the minutes that, through you, Chair, that an update was requested, but Councillor Ireton saying he hasn't been given an update.
He's not received the update yet.
But I don't
It was promised that there would be an update at the Chair and Vice Chair's briefing.
Yeah, when you have your monthly briefings.
Right.
I think we can only apologise that we failed to raise it at the last briefing. I forgot, I'm afraid.
As did I. So if we note that for the next.
Yeah.
So just on, I did actually, because I drafted some text, and it's obviously got lost somewhere. But I did draft some text after the meeting on that. But yeah, basically with that application, as you know, the committee on the 3rd of June 2024, members of the committee resolved that they were strongly minded to grant permission for the application, subject to referral to the Secretary of State, subject to conditions and the completion of a legal agreement in relation to off-site open space contribution. So that application was duly referred to the Secretary of State. They acknowledged receipt of all the requisite documentation by letter on the 5th of July, and they advised that the 21-day period, which is a standard period they have to consider these things, they advised that the 21-day period in which they must consider the referral would expire on the 24th of July 2024. 2 days after that, on the 26th of July 2024, we received a letter to advise that the Development Department was unable to complete consideration of the proposal by 24th of July 2024, and in exercise of their powers under Article 31(1) of the Town and Country Planning Development Management Procedure Order 2015, the Secretary of State directed the Council not to grant planning permission on the application without specific authorisation. This direction was issued to enable the Department to have a further period in which to consider the proposal. The letter stated that the matter will be dealt with as quickly as possible, and a further letter will be sent to the Council when that consideration has been completed. I've checked with the officers and we've not received any further communication that alters the status and direction that's placed on us.
Has there been any follow-up?
No, we've not had anything to say that we can do anything. We've got this direction on us which stops us granting the permission whilst they're considering it. We're told we'll deal with it as quickly as possible, but we still haven't had any decision communicated to us.
obvious question: have we chased a response up rather than waiting for the Secretary of State's department to come back to us? Are we proactively chasing? Because if the standard period is 21 days, they've now had more than 21 weeks. It would seem that the applicant has been prejudiced as a failure of the government to get its act together, which, given this government, is not a great surprise, to be perfectly frank, but that's going on to other issues.
I mean, I'll speak with the officers about that, but ultimately, it's, unless the Secretary of State changed what us.
I appreciate we're in their hands, but it's no good Angela Rayner saying that we must build, and they're not responding to this. They either need to, grant it or refuse it. Yeah.
I mean, could we ask that the officers write to the Secretary of State asking why it's been so long and requesting a response?
Can I ask this one? Do they have an obligation on themselves to respond within a certain
21 days.
21 days usually.
Well, yeah. They've got his stay that's been put on.
Yeah, it's 21 days, but there is this power which they've invoked, which is direction they can't grant permission.
But the power that they invoked, does that just carry on in perpetuity? Do they not have some stage at which they have to deal with it?
I mean, it makes a mockery of 21 days if they can then decide that they are going to ignore the 21 days for, as you say, 21 weeks.
Well, I mean, to be fair to them, and they received it right at the point at which there was the election. The election was the 4th of July. Asking for a short extension to the 21-day period to enable a new Secretary of State to be able to review the matter wasn't inappropriate. But they've now had in excess of 21 weeks and they still haven't responded. And I think we need to be chasing it up, because it might well be that it's got lost in the ether and we'll never actually get a response unless we formally chase it.
Are we all content with the action that we're going to take? Okay, thanks. Does anyone have any comments in respect of the minutes from last week? Okay, could I ask you to propose? That's around second there. So moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest to declare?
None, Chairman.
That's a no. Right, so if we could move on to substantive business, which is item 4, which is the application for the erection of buildings for storage space and ancillary office buildings at Event Traffic Control Limited in Baldersby. So if I could hand over to the case officer to introduce the report, please.
Well, thank you, Chairman. There's no actual update in terms of the text of the report where it says there might be an update. In other words, we've not received anything from the guidance agency and no further representation being received on the application. The application is brought to committee because the applicant holds contracts with the Highway Authority, Hertford County Council. The site is Oldham Gardens, which is to the southwest of Baldersby. It lies adjacent to the old railway line to Thirsk. The site was actually the railway station Woodyard years ago. The row of houses on the A61 frontage, then off to the left of that location plan, there is the A1M. The site, as you can see, is part of a larger area of glass houses. There's also some polytunnels off to the west side there. Just to show 2 slides, will come out okay on the screen there. On the left is the current application site. On the right is the previous approvals for storage use. As you can see, there's quite a large areas had been approved for storage in 2015 and 2019. This application only relates to part of that area. So the existing are a group of polytunnels, there's also a timber office building, a portable unit that's used for offices, and there's also a storage accommodation unit there as well at the moment. The proposal is to remove the extent of the glass houses on the application site, construct a new warehouse and also a new office building that is that sort of L shape at the bottom of there. The warehouse was actually dug into the ground, so it's actually fractionally lower than the glass houses that exist at the moment. In contrast, the office building, you can see just on this slide here at the top left, is actually fractionally higher. So then the office building says this L-shaped one providing accommodation. There's also offices in the ground floor of the warehouse building as well as a visitor entrance. The application is subject to BNG requirements of the local plan policy, and that explains the use of a strip of land against Harehill Lane, which is to use for BNG purposes for mixed scrubland. And so the rest of the site is allocated for BNG purposes on that side. Just in the report at 1052, the reference that Harehill Lane is not a public right-of-way. There is actually a public footpath sign at the start of Harehill Lane. I've asked public rights-of-way about this, and I'm not actually had a definitive answer back from them. They say the sign was put there in 2018, which ties in with the A1M works, and it's thought there was a side roads act which turned all the side roads to the A1M into public rights of way. To the former A1 into public rights of way. So that's one explanation to come up with, and the public rights of way map has not been updated. The alternative, which I don't really think could be the case, is that it's directing people to the public footpath at the end, which you don't normally find signs directing you to the footpath elsewhere. So that's how that clarifies. So the point is, it's an existing business off an existing road, whether it's a public right of way or not, it doesn't really change the balance of the application. Just moving on, the existing access curves in of Harehill Lane. On the proposal, it will go straight to Harehill Lane, so it will go across this area here. And this extended next to the hedgerow is the area where the BNG and scrubland. This shows the existing glass houses and the extent of accommodation within, which is actually quite limited due to the internal framework of the glass houses. So we actually end up with a development in terms of storage, which takes less area than the current glass houses do. So this is just showing the existing office accommodation storage unit. The one other thing to point out is in the local plan, just go back to this plan here, the bottom edge of the site forms the old Melbourne to Thirst railway line. The local plan, you can see it on the side A61 there, the local plan protects that as part of its policy of protecting the route from Harrogate to Northampton. It's a bit tenuous today given the A1M works and the A6055 works have basically destroyed any route under those roads. The office building is also set back slightly, so should anything occur, there is space for it. So the recommendation is to approve, and that's all, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Williams.
Sorry, I misread who the applicant was, and I'd just like to know Councillor Brodigan, I think, will wish to join me in making the same declaration of interest, in that the applicant provides traffic management to Ripon City Council, of which we are both members, but that as that contract was awarded on a competitive tender basis, I don't consider that we have a prejudicial interest in determining the application before us.
Are we okay with that? We're not. Okay, thank you. Councillor Heseltine.
Just on the
Just have to shout up. We've got some feedback on them today.
I'm such a quiet lot.
We've had such a quiet life, haven't we?
Just on the status, whether it's a bridle way or whether horses have any rights or pedestrians on that access track. I've been out and had a look round actually this morning, just to refresh myself. I used to buy quite a few plants at that place over the years, and my recollection is that track that goes off the main road, where it shows the bellway, if you put it up place. Well, certainly the entrance is maintained by North Yorkshire Highways, unless you're a very good artist president that paints white lines for you. And my impression was that unless it's been declassified recently, that's still the highway maintained by the local authority. And as such, horses will be allowed down it as pedestrians are.
I'm just on the North Yorkshire interactive map actually of adopted highways, and it says that it's an unclassified road, but unclassified roads can still mean that it's an adopted highway.
It can, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. There is a. Is that a footpath? Right, there's a footpath at the end of Eagle Lane, and there is a barrier gate halfway down Eagle Lane with actually a pedestrian way through, so it's quite clearly set out as a pedestrian right of way. It'd be difficult to get the horse through that gate, to be honest. But
if I could stop you at that, I'm not questioning whether there's a gate across or not. I'm not questioning that. The fact that it could well be still a maintained highway would allow access for horses and pedestrians. End of story. You might think you can alter footpath arrangements, but you can't muck about with law. But you're a solicitor.
May well have a point. Okay. And then we've got Councillor.
Yeah, I've got a number of questions, which I'll just do straight. I'm trying to understand the nature of the past business and the future business. Is this the same business done in different premises, or is this a fundamentally different business?
it's the existing glass houses that we've been told at the end of the life, basically. So that the business, and as you saw from the slides, the office accommodation is not really brilliant for this day and age. So it's basically the existing business looking to redevelop its site in a manner suitable for moving forward.
But it wasn't that originally, it was a nursery.
It was
I'm trying to understand it because there's obviously something different between what happens in glass houses and what happens in a warehouse. And what I'm actually working at is trying to understand, in normal circumstances, would we approve a warehouse development on this location?
We wouldn't approve a warehouse location if there was no existing use. The existing storage use has been in existence since 2013 and 2019, 15. So there's an existing business there. So
it's been operating effectively as a warehouse in glass houses for. Okay, I think I got that. Could you just clarify for me the floor area of the existing buildings and the floor area of the new buildings? Is it smaller or bigger?
It's smaller in terms of the storage accommodation. 866 square metres of glass houses to be removed, and the new storage area will be 628 square metres.
But on top of that, you've got an office
You've got
building.
the office accommodation, that will increase from 132 to 429.
So there's a total increase in floor area, not a reduction.
There's a slight, there's an increase in the office.
I think that needed to be clearer and more honestly expressed in the report, to be honest. Could I also just clarify, how many new jobs do we get from the development?
Not indicated any new jobs.
So there's no, but we protect. Okay. Final sort of thing for me is just the BREEAM Excellent. I mean, that's a policy of ours, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Did we check out the possibility of ground source heating, for instance, to take it from very good to excellent? Was that reviewed as a possibility?
It's something that could be looked at. I mean, it was a pre-assessment report which came out saying it would only make very good. The weightings of the pre-assessment report, there's an awful lot of things, and certain aspects like transportation to and from the site where it's never going to tick full boxes in that location, it's an existing business. So going forward, there would have to be a design stage report which sets out the actual full details, and it's that point at which it could be a case where it might be very, very good or even excellent.
But the key factor was it's in an unsustainable location, and that therefore gave it a low score.
In terms of public transport, it's very unsustainable. There is, I think you get to Ripon and back during the day. There's a bus that goes from Northallerton to Ripon in the morning. It doesn't stop for according to the timetable. And there's no return in the evening. So it's very much a place where there's a lot of people written in support of the application who live in the village, who are workers there. So it quite plainly draws in local people to work at the business. In terms of those then, obviously cycling to the site is a possibility. So it could be sustainable in that manner. But in terms of anybody commuting from Ripon or Thirsk or surrounding areas, it's very much car-based.
I'll come back to that in debate. Just to final question is, there is an assertion somewhere in the public comments that the traffic will go not through the village but directly to the M1. Is that, in your opinion, an accurate assertion or an inaccurate assertion?
It's based on what the business is, which is traffic management, and they do traffic management across the country. So quite plainly, they're going to be commuting largely by the motorway network.
So there is no reason why any traffic would go through the village, is your opinion?
They are doing traffic management for the county. So I mean, if there's a requirement for traffic management in Thirsk, it will go through the village.
I'm just trying to, I think your answer's I'm trying to just get clear in my mind. Is there any circumstance in which they would need to do delivery runs that would go through the village? Because I'm trying to understand, if all the deliveries are going out to the M1, then it's one set of circumstances. If half the deliveries are going through the village, it's another. And I'm just trying to get my mind clear. I'm not got a view one way or the other.
The indication that I've been given is the majority will go by the motorway.
Okay.
I think it's there or
Thank you, Chairman. The BNG, who's actually going to be the responsible body for that? Is it North Yorkshire? I believe we started doing them, haven't we?
The bylaws net gain has been agreed by council ecologists. They've got a scheme which they agree is acceptable, and hence the condition requiring that to be provided, the report done a year after it's been provided, and then the planting maintained for a 30-year period.
Yeah, it's a 2-year, 5-year, etc. But who's going to be the responsible body?
Well, the responsibility falls on the applicant to agree with the conditions and the council ecologists to agree those details.
I thought there needed to be a responsible body to monitor this. The ecologists would do a report and they would put that in to the responsible body.
So I can't answer that, sorry, I'm not aware of that. I mean, this is not biodose that again the government's mandatory, it's under the local plan policy. and they're saying that the council ecologists have agreed the scheme.
Yeah, I think the submission of the application predated the mandatory requirements,
Yes,
didn't
yeah.
it? So it's really under the council's policy on biodiversity mitigation, which did require no net loss on an application this size.
Yeah, I've read there's no net loss,
Yeah.
but there needs to be a 10% uplift. And it is, so what you're telling me is that the point of this application, because it came in before the BNG became law, so it is at the point of submission of the plans, not at the point of deciding them.
Yeah, it's all about when the application was submitted. So the application was submitted before the national mandatory requirements came in at biodiversity net gain, but there was a requirement in our local plan for biodiversity net gain on a site such as this, but no net loss rather than the 10% or whatever. So that's how we've reported the application.
Right.
Councillor Heseltine.
We need to get up to speed with it.
Yeah, just a few more points of clarification. Mr. Parks did say that the buildings have become, the glass houses have become dilapidated. But there have been several applications over the years to improve those buildings, replace them with industrial units, all of which were refused. Could you tell me why were they refused? Or why is everything hunky-dory now?
Well, the previous application, the all appeared speculative, it's the only way to put it down. I mean, we're talking of B2 uses, B1 uses, but we're now into storage B8 use for an existing B8 use. So, the past history is unfortunate, it's the only way to describe it. It doesn't reflect the application we've now got in front of us, which is an existing B8 user wanting replacement B8 storage, basically.
Has there then been a change of ownership since 2008?
Well, 2008...
Change of circumstance?
Well, 2008, I mean, if you just look at that description there, the 4 retail sales, cafe and business uses for the first one. And the second one, still the same, retail sales, cafe and business uses. So it's quite a big expansion beyond what we're dealing with today. We haven't been retail sales with it on the cafe. So it is just a B8 storage use.
It's under a rather different set of policies then as well, in those days as well. And as Mark said, in the intervening period, there was a permission on the site that establishes the business that's there.
When I was buying plants from there, Chairman, I retail. I thought I was helping a local retail horticultural business. Originally, probably I haven't. Anyway, the appearance of the landscape is to go down to what was the old railway line. There are no buildings at the bottom of the lane that I could see of. And all the land was either in agricultural use this morning, or horticultural use, or some new sign gone up for this applicant that we have in front of us today. Am I correct in thinking that the site itself is somewhat detached from the village?
It is outside the village by, I'm not sure the distance, but I mean, certainly there's a gap between this development, which is typical old railway station site situated not actually near the village, and the village itself.
Could it be said then that, Chairman, this application is for buildings, permanent buildings in open countryside?
The site's outside the development limits of Bowlesby. For planning purposes, it is in the countryside.
Open countryside?
Yeah, but there is a policy in the local plan which we refer to in the report, which does allow for redevelopment or expansion within certain guidelines of businesses in the countryside that already exist.
Mm. The previous applicant over the years has been very unfortunate, hasn't he? haven't they?
Well, I don't think they were existing businesses. I think that's the whole thing. I mean, this backdates to a permission in 2019. So that was a permission which gave this particular part of the site change of use from horticulture to storage. So what happened prior to 2019 is not really relevant other than the fact that it's history on the site, to be honest.
Not really relevant, which is relevant to a degree then.
Well, it's the history of the site, and there has been, I think, basically referred to the parish council's comments and representatives' comments of this history of refusals. But the issue is we've moved on. We moved on in 2019 when we accepted storage use of the buildings, and now we've got an application to replace those storage buildings with new storage buildings.
On the location plan, there's the area marked out that's in the ownership of the applicant. Does the applicant have any rights over any adjoining land there?
The applicant owns the land in blue as well as the land in red. But the land in blue is probably occupied by some polytunnels which will be removed in due course, I understand. Creeping toward the photo with the one around here. So you can see the polytunnels off that photo at the back of the driveway there. So that land is not part of this application. The application has to do the application.
Chairman, you'll have noticed that members' pack doesn't include the map with the blue line on. Is there any reason then in current planning terms why the rest of the land in this ownership shouldn't come forward then for industrial use in all the countryside? One will be thinking of precedent.
Well, it's not precedent because you're looking at an existing business. The existing business, as we say, has got a storage accommodation which they're actually reducing the footprint of. They're providing the office accommodation because, frankly, the offices are not particularly good standard with respect to that. So, any development which comes on in the future would have to be assessed at that point in time. The policy does allow existing businesses to expand onto adjacent land. So the issue would be, was there a need demonstrated for a business to expand? If it was a case of somebody coming along speculatively wanting to build on the site, then no, there isn't a policy support.
I remain utterly unconvinced, Chairman.
Councillor Brogden.
Yeah, I think you probably partly answered my question because I was going to ask about the footprint of this current application, because in respect to what was granted in 2019, can you confirm then that this application at the moment will reduce the footprint, if you like, of the land that's going to be used, or is it increased, or is it the same? So I'm a bit confused at the moment.
It's slightly more. The storage accommodation reduces. The storage accommodation drops.
Drops by 238 square metres.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And the office accommodation increases by just under 300. So there's a net increase slightly. I mean, those two plans show. The one on the right show the extent of storage use approved under the 2015 and 2019 consents.
Yeah.
So you've got quite a huge area on those, and this application is just referring to a small part of it. So you lose 866 square metres of the existing storage use. But the temporary office accommodation of 132 increases to 429 permanent.
So there is, if they would have to come back under a new application then to increase it if the business wanted to expand and use more land.
If they wanted to use more, this application does not give any permission for anything other than what's within that red line application site, which is the new office, the new warehouse and the area of land for biodiversity net gain.
Okay. And my other questions regards to the transport, because obviously some of the complaints have been about potential increase in traffic. Do we know what sort of vehicles are used at the moment for that transport?
Not that detail, I mean, normal vans, etc. It's a firm carrying out traffic management, so it will be your small or low loaders, as you see at roadworks, and those sorts of vehicles, typically. But they do go to businesses, they do go to locations around the country, so whether there's larger vehicles moving out that stuff, but if it is locations around the country, the same way using the motorway network.
Can I just check on something? In terms of vehicle movements in and out of the site, in terms of vehicles that are stored on site, is there sufficient parking for the current vehicles that are stored there overnight, or does any of that spill out onto the highway?
I've not had any complaints of vehicles parked on the highway. That's the answer I can give you to that. I mean, the site at the moment, there is parking to some extent, and this application normalises that parking. There's parking on a rest area, for example, at the moment. So you get more formalised parking, and highways have no objection to the application.
Anybody any more questions for the officer? Okay. Right then, if we could move on, we're going to listen now to some speakers who are going to make their representations. Right in thinking now we have 5 minutes, or you have 5 minutes to speak to us. We're going to hear from Mr. Stan Murray, who's an objector, followed by Councillor Chris Brown from Bolton Parish Council, and then Mr. David Bolton, who I think is the agent for the applicant. But if you could move forward, please, one at a time. Mr. Murray, if you could come and speak to us first. And so you have 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
A couple of questions.
Sorry, you can't put questions to us, you can only make statements, I'm afraid.
Statements?
It's a statement, really, as to your objections.
Can Chris go first, and let me just have a think about this then?
So the rule is the Constitution says you can speak, you can't ask questions of...
No, he's asking if he can go after
Can I
Councillor
go after
Brown
Chris
so that
just
he
to
can
rethink what I want to
so
say?
that he can think what he wants to say, because he was obviously going to ask questions.
I think we're okay with that.
Okay, sorry.
Councillor Brown?
Too many Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much, Councillor, for taking a keen interest. I've been a parish councillor for 55 years. Quite a long time. Most difficult job you can think of in the world as a parish councillor. You've got to please everybody, and that's not possible. In planning terms, it's impossible. What you're doing today is doing the local plan. We've said this all along. Mike Parks sat there. As a parish council, we've said this site is too big to deal with. It needs to go forward in the local plan. You can decide today whether it goes in the local plan or whether it doesn't go in the local plan. If you give it approval, it doesn't go in the local plan. Now, I've got to be really careful here, because there's some people who want the development. Some people don't want the development. If you read your classification, what you're actually doing today is converting this to B8. This used to be a railway station. Can you remember the railway station? It won awards for being a railway station. What would the Green Party give today if it was still a railway station? There wouldn't be a Green Party, but that's irrelevant. Let's stick to the planning. I don't know how you're going to deal with it. I know I'm dealing with it. I know the parish council's dealing with it. It's in our patch, just to clear up the bridleway. When the road was done, parish councils are only consultees. We have no power. So it went to public inquiry to the motorway, which is the end of this site, just a bit further down. We objected to it being a bridleway. They let it go as a bridleway. We objected to the county council. You can't have people on a 6-foot bridleway facing racehorses coming down at you. So it's no longer a bridleway, it's a public footpath. If you look back in your records, you'll see that. Now let's go back to this planning application. After the British Rail went bust, they decided to sell it all over the country, not just this one. What now do we do with disused railway lines, disused stations? Luckily, in Baldersby, an application came forward for greenhouses. So under the planning system, it qualified quite easily under agriculture, horticulture. So obviously it was allowed. It was very successful. You've seen it. If you've been to the site, you've seen it. The houses on the front were a office block, the laboratory, they were all connected. Because planning moves on, we had to do something with those, so now they've been converted. They were part of the establishment. We couldn't refuse that. There was no reason to refuse the greenhouses. It qualified. Sadly, that went bust. That's life. So then it had to go to another owner. The next owner came along, did a bit of retail, a bit of storage. Wow, I'll stop there. We let B8 creep in. Just a little bit of B8 storage crept in. Only a little bit. So we couldn't refuse it. Fine. So we let it go. What a silly mistake. Silly, silly mistake. Now I'm going to walk out of here tonight. People will hate me for saying what I've just said. Planning is about the site. It's not about people. It's about the site. I put it to you, I'm nearly finished now, Chairman. You are being a planning committee deciding on the local plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
I hope it's this afternoon he's walking out and not tonight.
I'm going to ask David Bolton to come speak to us now, if that's okay. We'll give Mr. Murray a couple more moments, if everyone's happy with that, please.
I think we're going to use
If you could come forward, thank you.
Thank you. I'll try and answer some of the questions that have been raised as well. If I have sufficient time, hopefully I'll be able to do that. Thank you very much. The site benefits from planning permission for commercial use, and so the authority has accepted the principle in this specific location, with the storage use and associated ancillary activity being wholly legitimate in this regard. This has been successfully progressed by the applicant over the last 10 years and given rise to the proposals before you now. The fundamental basis of local planning policy, EC2, is to enable and facilitate successful local businesses to grow and develop where they are located to meet changing needs. That is the appropriate starting point. The use is clearly for a beneficial purpose, and while a make-to-amend approach could be followed, this is neither a requirement of policy nor appropriate in the longer term. There is no obligation or expectation to relocate under planning policy. To the contrary, in fact, policy facilitates improvement and betterment. The need for the development has been demonstrated as evident, and the proposals are commensurate with that need. The site is part of a wider and long-established developed area, as we've heard, as a coal yard, railway station, and then as a previous commercial nursery enterprise, not reliant upon a wider landholding, but undercover production space and a yard, a ring-fenced and developed site. The replacement of such, given the now lawful use, is legitimate. It's of comparable height for the glass houses, lower eaves, etc., has been explained. Any difference is not capable of being perceived given the separation from the public highway. Two buildings would be sited in close proximity, with the office building helping to screen any limited views onto the larger warehouse from the south. The building materials would be different to the glass houses. Such would not be out of context with the appearance comparable to an agricultural building, which is wholly typical. The site would not be prominent when leaving the village due to the presence of other frontage buildings, nor viewed in the context of it from the southern approach due to the same buildings, the position relative to the highway and the separation from the village. The whitewashed and reflective glass houses are quite more visually prominent than the proposed new buildings in any minor longer distance views, from the south both by day and in darkness when illuminated. The scheme provides a much more subtle development in comparison. The site has access to the adopted highway with ideal visibility, there is no highway objection, and a refusal on this basis would not stand scrutiny. Access to and from the A1 to the south is the main route for vehicle movements and not through the village, such as via fixed bed lorries, light vans, with the site not enabling articulated HGV access in any event. There would be no perceptible change given the comparable nature of the scale of the use, underlying status of and traffic flow on the A61 and limited hours of operation. The present use would continue with no perceived change to the nature of the use experienced by local residents. There is no objections from immediate neighbours. The activity would be better contained and confined within the envelope of the warehouse and with limits to hours of operation already established, so an enhancement would be realised. In terms of the comments that have been raised, horses and pedestrians, they do have to travel along a more hazardous stretch of the highway to actually get to this site in the first instance. In terms of job creation, there's 28 jobs on site which are facilitated by the existing activity and will be retained. BREEAM is the maximum possible level that is achieved given the unheated warehouse buildings there, and the other set of spaces will achieve excellent status. BNG does provide a gain, and the applicant will be the responsible party by condition to maintain that. The past proposals were not part of the applicant. There's nothing to do with the applicant whatsoever. That was previous owners. And the floor space will be a reduction given the polytunnels to the west of the site will be removed as part of this scheme as shown on that plan. And parking, there is sufficient for vehicles within the site and within the building itself that's to be created for both staff and service vehicles. So the proposal will comply with local plan policy EC2 in principle. It will be more discreet than the present operation, and the buildings at the premises occupy a comparable area, be no higher than existing premises, and of a simple design and appearance. It will have no impact in highway or amenity terms, given the existing legitimate operation, and it will bring an economic benefit in securing employment and a key service. Hopefully we'll be able to support the officer's recommendation.
5 minutes. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Murray, are you able to come forward now?
Thank you for that.
Just to say, it's more of a statement that you need to make.
Yeah, that's fine. So regarding highway impact, on all the planning, it's got the entrance off the 61 at 31.1 metres in width on the corner. Where the new planned entrance going into the site is, the track is about 2.8 metres wide, which it's on an unkept road. Highways never keep it up, it's potholes and everything, so it's going to be totally inadequate is the width of the road. For one, fire engines, the minimum road width for a fire engine should be, I think it's 3.8 metres between the curbs. So how is that going to be accessible? The other thing, we live right on the corner, and just going back to the horses, my wife walks the horses down there and rides the horses down there. So they are up and down of the horses, which will impact us. And the other thing is regarding for them working hours. The site is used on a Sunday afternoon, the gates are open. The site is used on bank holidays and Saturday afternoons. How is this going to be restricted, even though it's on the planning for restricted hours, if planning goes ahead? We, like I say, we're up and down the lane all the time. We walk the dogs twice a day, weekends and everything. The gates are open, the vans are in and out. And that is fact. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So if we can move on to the debate, if anyone would like to kick us off. Councillor Reeves.
Sorry, I keep forgetting that those things are whistling today. I hear what the objectors have said. I think the difficulty that I have is that the report gives no indication that the highways officer that's looked at this has raised any issue in respect of highway matters, and that therefore the issues that have just been raised, were we to rely upon those for grounds to refusal, I think would leave us open to appeal and potentially costs as a result of going down that course. I think my personal view is that this is an existing business providing local employment to people who reside in the village and the local area, and there needs to be provision of employment in rural locations for people who live in rural locations. It seems to me that this is not an inappropriate location for the business, given its close proximity to join the A1M and obviously then on to the A19 and other routes besides. I think the proposed building frankly would be better than the mishmash of semi-derelict greenhouses that are there at the moment. And I think we do have an obligation to try and ensure that local businesses can be successful whilst respecting the surrounding in which they are set. And it may be that one of the things that because I'm going to propose that we support the application in principle, my concern relates to the hours of work that the resident has raised, and that I can see as being an issue, not least because of course events finish at all times of the day and night, and is equipment being returned in the early hours of the morning, because that clearly would be inappropriate if that were the case. So I'd like some guidance on the operational hours on the site. The principle of the development as applied for, on balance I am content with, but I do have reservations about effectively whether a 24/7 operation is being run from the site.
Yeah, I think they've got that in the conditions. I'm just trying to find it. So it's actually conditioned in the condition 16, which says I think can go up to the hours of 7 and 8 o'clock Monday to Saturday, and not on Sundays or public holidays. Of course, if the site was being used outside of those hours, it would be breach of condition, which would then be an enforcement issue.
No, but my only concern is that those the operating hours that exist currently.
Yes.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. I don't think we'd accept this if it was a brand new application in an unsustainable location in open countryside. I think there's no shortage of people that want to put warehouses alongside the A1M, and we'd be, I think, straight rejecting it in terms of the local plan if it was a brand new application. And there's quite a lot of policies we're setting aside. I mean, it's clearly in an unsustainable location. The BREEAM Excellent setting aside bothers me. And I was a bit concerned that the report it needed to be straighter, frankly, about the existing size and the past size. You could work it out. It's bigger than the existing, and it's higher than the existing. Both the warehouses are fractionally 0.1 metre when built above the current level, even allowing for the setting down, and the offices were something like 1 metre bigger, was it? But they're certainly bigger. So it's higher and larger than the existing site. However, that decision in 2019 completely changes everything, in my view. Once they changed the use of the building from a horticultural use to a storage use, existing VA, I think we're pretty powerless to do anything other than to say this is one storage use replacing another storage use. The jobs are secure, there's no improvement in jobs, but that's not an insignificant thing in a rural location. You know, that kind of, and I can see why some of the villages were for and some were against if there was jobs secured, but you know, I didn't hear anything about the traffic that would make me to believe it was going to be an increase in traffic going through the village, or that was a major concern given that most of it will be out onto the A1M. I hate the BREEAM excellent, but there is an energy statement, and I would ask both the officer and the applicant to look seriously at whether you can put ground source heating. Cost you more to do, but it will save you a lot more on the running costs, and I think you should look at it very seriously, and the officer should only accept its rejection if it's, you know, very, very clearly not going to be viable as a long-term thing. I think it's a small increase in capital costs on the overall project, but that's, I can't condition that because the energy statement deals with that, so I'm asking people to look at that. The overall site will be tidier, more coherent, and you've got some improvement in biodiversity, admittedly, on the old policy, not the new. So I'm going to second the thing, because I mean I was also questioning the operating hours, but if it's already operating at those hours, it's bloody hard to condition further restriction. So I second it, reluctantly.
I really don't want to enter into the debate on this, Chairman, but the agent said that the applicant would be the responsible body. I'm unsure because this is falling before BNG, but surely the applicant can't be the responsible body to mark the homework.
You're right.
And I would like clarification, not now, but certainly after this meeting, of actually who is the responsible body for these applications, because it certainly cannot be the applicant, in my view. Thank you.
Is that something that you can provide us with, officers?
Yeah, just rereading the conditions about biodiversity net gain. Now it's 15.
It'll do after the meeting. Do check it before the notice goes out if it is approved.
Could we just ask the officer to give us an undertaking that the issue will be looked in seriously and the proper statement will be made?
Because I want a correct answer to it, please. Okay.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Can I just address one thing? Mr. Murray spoke about his concerns about the access and the revised access not being wide enough, but we've dealt with that under the special condition. Condition 9.
It's a misreading of the drawing. I think is what it comes down to. Get back to the very first slide. That's one actually. What you've got is on the plan, you've got AOD heights. So you've got 32.3 there, you've got 31.3 there, you've got 33.1 Britain at the junction, which people are taking with the road width, and it's actually height above all of this.
Okay, but just for some clarification. Right. Does anyone else have anything else there? Councillor?
Can we have our railway station back, please? Sorry.
Yeah.
Has it been moved?
Okay, so it's been moved by Councillor Williams and seconded by Councillor Brown. So if nobody else wants to say anything else, we're going to take a vote on this, and we're going to take a vote on the recommendation that planning permission is granted subject to the conditions laid out in the report. So all those in favour? Any against? Okay, and that will be no abstention. So that's carried by 6 to 1. Thank you very much. So just moving on to the next item on the agenda, item 5. Any other items of business anyone wishes to raise today? That'll be a no. So the date of the next meeting is scheduled to take place on Monday the 2nd of June 2025 at 1 p.m. at a venue to be decided. Okay, thank you ever so much for your participation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.